Okay, this video demonstrates the new features being released in version 5.8 of BVEssentials. So the first one is a support for standard cost. So if we go into an inventory item, you'll see we have a cost called standard cost. We've always had that field, but it's always been just for a reference and not used within the program. But now we display that cost when you're in different parts of the program. So if you go into a sales order and you open it up, you'll see that on the list is current, average, and standard cost. So here it is here. Now that cost is, under normal circumstances, is not used during the posting. It's just there for display purposes. But on each of the users, you can decide which cost they get to see. So if I go to Tools, Users, bring up the user list, and while we're in here, we'll show another new feature. Type the word cost, and it short lists things here, so you can see the ones that are not grayed out tell you that there's something within there as with the word cost in it somewhere. So in this user, you display which cost they see. So if you only want them to see the standard cost, you can uncheck average and current. And if for commission purposes you're paying on standard cost, which is a fixed cost, which doesn't change programmatically, it only gets changed by the person who changes it in inventory edit. So now when I go into sales and I go into a sales order, the only cost I'm seeing, I'll have to exit out of the sales order module first, which to exit out of a module, you just basically double click it, pops up into its own window and close it, and then go back into sales and open up a sales order. Now I'm only seeing the current cost. In this case, you'll notice I am still seeing all the costs. That's because when I went into the user setup, if I close that again and go into users and back into the user, and if I type cost again, the place I changed it was in the inventory module. So only the inventory module, I'm only seeing the one cost. But this one's also not grayed out. So I can go here and uncheck average and current costs. And in here, I can also uncheck whether they see the cost at all. If I uncheck that, it lose all costs. Okay, so now we'll leave that out, and we'll go into an order, and now you'll see that I'm only seeing the standard cost, and no other cost is appearing. Okay, so that's one way for the oh, and then the GP percentage on the bottom, the gross profit, is also based on standard, so standard GP, and the total cost I see on the order is the same. Okay, so that is just in the sales order. We also have a company-wide setting. I go to company setup and I type cost up here, and I look in my system. We got landed there. Go to sales orders. We see here we got different processing. So use standard cost to sales history current cost. So in Business Vision's sales history, in Business Vision, if you turn on FIFO costing, instead of posting a current cost, it posts FIFO cost. So we do the same thing here with standard cost. If this is checked in sales history, the standard cost will get posted to the current cost column. So again, if you're paying commission on that, it's actually posting. Now, of course, we never touch average costs because that's what's getting posted to the general ledger. So that's safe as far as counting is concerned. Okay, the next feature we added is the capability of saving the UPC code. So if I go into this item here and I type 123 as my UPC, it translates that to a TV 3600, but it saves the UPC code on the order itself. Where this is handy is if you use UPC codes for your customer's part number, that can then be printed on the order. Because of BVEssentials' capability of putting more than one UPC code on an item, so I'm going to look up this TV 3600 and edit it, you'll see that we have 456 is also a UPC code, or a quick code, or whatever you want to call it. So if we now put this one on here as a 456, then it still translates it out to a TV 3600, but it puts 456 on here instead of 123. So if you use a different customer code and you want the code to print and your customer calls and orders a 456, it'll print their part number right on the order. Okay, the next feature we added was again a user setting. And if we choose the user and we type in phase, we now have under production orders and under sales orders the capability of whether they're allowed to change phases on an order or not, or whether they're allowed to increment a phase on an order. All right, the next one is in production. So if we go to a production orders order and we open that up here on the screen, we now allow you to sort by any of the columns within the details. So you sort on description, it sorts by that. We sort on part number, it sorts by that. Quantity, bill quantity, all the columns. The only one it always leaves at the top is the top assembly item that you are building at this particular time. When you close this production order and come back in again, it puts it back to its natural order. That way you're not having to figure out what order it was in when you finish with it. Okay, the next one is we added the time to when the created order was created. So we have the created and the modified. We used to have just the date, and now we've actually added the time in it. So for people that have orders that need to be shipped out in based on first come first serve, now you can see within the day which one was last created, and the hour and minute as well. Okay, the next feature involves production orders. So what we did here was if an item is a sub-assembly, it used to be that you had to click on each item to find out if it was. Now we've turned the icon in front of it square instead of round. And that's how you know that this particular item is a sub-assembly. And then of course you can click toggle sub-assemblies to actually toggle and explode out the sub-assemblies still. And that indicator will be whatever color it's supposed to be still. Inside the subassembly, if there's another subassembly of that subassembly, it will also be square. Okay, the next one involves requisitions. When you've created a requisition for an item from within a sales order, what we used to do is put just the customer name inside the purchase order once you've created the PO. So here's a PO that got created directly from a sales order, and we now put the customer name as well as their ship to ID, so you know which of their ship tos this particular item is going to. And of course, it also shows the sales order it belongs to as well. And the next feature involves suppliers. If you open up the supplier, we now have in the supplier the vendor prices. So all the items that we buy from this particular vendor will show up on here. And this is not the primary vendor. This is any item that you've got vendor specific pricing on shows up in here. Okay, our next feature involves the point of sale module. If you go into the point of sale, you'll see there's pictures on here. And these pictures will rotate every few seconds to a different series of pictures. Where that comes from, if I go into tools and company setup, I can point to, if I go into sales orders and then miscellaneous, then there's a spot under point of sale called home page. This page can either be on your computer or on your server, or it can be on a web page. So in my case, I've got it on a web page where it points to. And then there's just some script sitting in that web page. And if you went to that web page on your browser, the exact same thing would show up. So in this case, it's just rotating through as many JPEG images that I have sitting in there. And as I change those JPEGs, it will add more and more images to this. The other feature we added was the capability if you put in sold an item, it puts the picture of that item that you sold in on the bottom half of the screen here. And that image comes from inventory and inside the item. And I go to the images tab. And there's the picture, that's where it comes from. So this is the same place in Business Vision that you store your image. Okay, so we've always had the capability of having a pop-up message when you create an order for a customer. So if I put ACE on here, then I get pop-up image. Oh, that popped up on the other screen. So there's a pop-up image there. We'll just put that. And then we save that, and we'll just save and close this order. And that was the last time you ever saw that message. So now what we do is if you go into any order that ACE has, it doesn't matter if that same order or not, if you just pop it open, it puts this red band across the top that says see notes for this customer. We didn't want to make it pop up again because for some people, you don't want to have that irritating thing come in front of you each time. So with this band across the top, you can just ignore it and continue on, or you can hit view notes, and then it will show any notes that you've got as pop-ups for that particular customer. And then you can dismiss it as well. Okay, next we have to go into an order, one that's specifically when it's large like this, so it's got scrolling. We've had people say that the more and more features we add, they like the fact that they can add now a contact name and a phone number and email address here. We got all the shipping info on the front, so you don't have to go digging deep for things like salesperson. They're all here, but sometimes they say that it takes up a lot of real estate on the screen, so you'd like to be able to, once you fill that out especially, or maybe you don't always use all those fields, you now have the capability of pressing a view compact. What that does is it squashes up the top half of the screen, makes the bottom half smaller, gives less information, but you now have far more info on here to be able to add lines and see everything in the screen. If you save and close this order and you go back into any order, it will leave it you're in that compact view until such time you press the button again. And it will remember that even if you log out of the program. Okay, the next one, we go into a sales order and we go to fill order tab here. What this is for is to basically now fill this order out, and you can use a scanner on this as well. So if I zero out all my ship quantity here to start with, they all turn red, which means that none of them match the ordered quantity. Now what I do is I start typing up here for the items that I'm going to ship. So if I type in an SP-50, it actually drops me down onto that line so that I can now edit things on the screen here. But what it also does, it puts me back to the part number again, so I can now scan in the next one or type in the next one. Notice that that SP50 is now black because we've fully fulfilled the order. If we do SP-50 again, scan, it pops up and says cannot be overshipped. It will not let you ship more than what's on this order. If you do need to change the quantity, then you just need to go back to the main tab, change it in here, and then come back to fill again. This is to facilitate quickly being able to scan and put items on here or fulfill the items. The other thing you can do, let's say we've got 20 of these N142s. So I'll just type in up here 20 times, so 20 asterisk, and watch what happens. It puts quantity 20 up in here automatically. And then I can type in my N142. And then it automatically shifts my 20 of the N142s. What you can do there is on your barcode that you're scanning, if you sell these in 20 packs commonly, within the scan barcode, you use your scanning, put 2 asterisk N142 as part of the barcode. And if you scan that whole thing right here at the same time, it will take and put all 20 in there for you automatically. Then lastly, what it does not let you do is type in a part number that doesn't exist on this order. Just beep at you and say it doesn't exist on order, and you also have to go back to the main tab to do that. We have the exact same functionality within purchase orders. If I go into a issued purchase order, I come in here, I got the receive order tab, and the exact same functionality exists on here, where I can just scan in the part number and have it fulfill on this order as well, type or scan. And again, when you do put something in here, like say desk, and it drops you down to that line, you can now adjust your cost and your sell price. So if your costs have gone up, you can change that, and you can add in the location. So if you're moving it as you receive it, you can do so as well. And then we also have a field we can turn on here for the vendor's part number as well. Okay, and then if you use our location accounting, our filters button also now lets you filter location, which location you want to work in, and switch back and forth between them. And it allows you to look at all locations at the same time. And for those that use our optional modules, and you have to remember to download each one of them if you to add them on, that no longer needs to happen. If you have Service Manager or Rental Manager, one of our import routines, either the sales order import or the inventory receiving import, for the scanning routines for sales and purchases, or our contract cost module, where each customer has their own costs and it collects rebates to your suppliers, or our inventory export routine, or our production order scanning phase control system. If you have any of those add-on modules, you no longer have to put them in as separate modules. When you install BVEssentials from our update site, it puts all those modules in, and in your licensing controls which modules you'll actually see come in the system.